The news came like a punch to the chest. Robert Redford, the golden boy of Hollywood, the man whose face defined an era, is gone. When the story broke, the world didn't just pause, it gasped. Think about it. How many actors can you name who changed both mainstream cinema and independent film forever? How many can you picture instantly? Not from just one role, but dozens. Robert Redford wasn't just another actor. He was a symbol, a legend who carried himself with effortless charm, piercing intelligence, and a rare kind of depth. And yet, even at the height of his fame, he remained a mystery. Now with his passing, tributes are flooding in, memories are being unearthed, and fans are realizing all over again just how much he meant to the world. But here's the part that no one can stop talking about: his lifelong connection to Barbra Streisand, a relationship that went far beyond the silver screen. Their story is as compelling as any movie they ever made, and it may hold the key to understanding why Robert Redford wasn't just a Hollywood star. He was something much more. The morning of September 16th, 2025 began like any other until the phone calls started pouring in. Hollywood's most respected names were in tears, while news outlets scrambled to confirm what fans feared. Robert Redford had passed away at 89 at his beloved Sundance home in Utah. The shockwaves hit instantly. Meryl Streep, his co-star in Out of Africa, summed it up perfectly in her tribute. One of the lions has passed. Even in the political world, there was unanimous respect, something rare in today's climate. Former President Donald Trump, who is rarely generous in his remarks about Hollywood figures, acknowledged Redford's unique brilliance, saying there was a stretch of years where nobody was better. That's the thing about Redford. His impact was so profound. It reached beyond Hollywood and into every corner of public life. Actors, directors, authors, politicians, everyone had something to say because everyone had been touched by his work in some way. But the tribute that made people pause, that cut the deepest, came not from a politician or a fellow actor, but from a woman who knew him in a way no one else did: Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand's name has been linked to Robert Redford's for more than 50 years, but their connection was never about gossip. It was about magic. On paper, they couldn't have been more different. She grew up in Brooklyn, a Jewish kid who learned toughness on the streets, while Redford was the sun-kissed Californian who surfed, rode horses, and looked like he stepped out of a magazine ad. And yet, as Streisand herself said, beneath the surface, they were strikingly similar: shy, sensitive, deeply private. That combination, surface differences hiding inner similarities, created a chemistry that was irresistible on screen. And it wasn't just acting. Streisand fought for him, protected him, and honored him year after year. Their relationship wasn't defined by scandal, like so many Hollywood pairings, but by a quiet, enduring respect. Fans always sensed that their connection ran deeper than lines in a script, and the tributes Streisand has given over the years only confirm it. Which brings us to the film that immortalized them both. When The Way We Were began production in 1973, Barbra Streisand knew exactly who she wanted for the role of Hubble Gardner. She insisted on Robert Redford, even when he hesitated. And yes, he really did hesitate. At the time, Redford was already a star, but he wasn't satisfied with being just the pretty face Hollywood wanted him to be. He looked at the original script and thought the character was too shallow, too one-dimensional. In his words, "If you had a flaw, that might be interesting. Otherwise, I'd just be a model for someone to fall in love with." That's what made Redford so different, even at the peak of his beauty. When women and men around the world adored him, he demanded more. He wanted depth, honesty, something real. Streisand fought to convince him, and when he finally agreed, the result was lightning in a bottle. Their chemistry turned The Way We Were into more than a movie. It became a cultural touchstone, a story that still makes audiences cry 50 years later. And behind the scenes, it forged a bond that would last the rest of their lives. Unlike many Hollywood partnerships, Redford and Streisand's relationship never faded with time. Decades after The Way We Were, they were still in touch, still checking in on each other. On his 85th birthday, Streisand posted a throwback photo with the simple message, "Dear Bob, happy birthday. It was great talking to you the other day." That might sound small, but think about it. After half a century, they were still sharing conversations and memories. At a 2015 awards ceremony, Streisand described Redford as someone who never gave everything away. She even joked about their fictional marriage and The Way We Were, saying, "Too bad it didn't work out, but we made something that lasted longer than most real marriages." That was their friendship in a nutshell. Worn, playful, deeply respectful. Streisand didn't just honor Redford once, she honored him repeatedly across decades. And that's why her words in the wake of his passing hit so hard. As the world processes his passing, one question is already looming. What will Robert Redford's memorial look like? Few events in Hollywood history will rival it. Imagine it. Every actor who admired him, every director he inspired, every Sundance filmmaker whose career began because of his vision, all gathered in one place. It won't just be a funeral. It'll be a cinematic moment in itself. The family has asked for privacy, of course, but when the public memorial happens, it will be the most star-studded goodbye in decades. Because this wasn't just a man who entertained people, he changed the game. He made space for voices Hollywood would have ignored. And in honoring him, Hollywood will also be honoring everything it hopes to be at its best. But to really understand his legacy, you have to look beyond his movies and toward the revolution he started in a small Utah town. If Robert Redford had only acted, his career would still be legendary. But his greatest contribution may have been Sundance. In 1981, after winning an Oscar for directing Ordinary People, he founded the Sundance Institute, planting the seeds for what would become the most influential film festival in the world. Think about this. Without Redford, would Quentin Tarantino have become Quentin Tarantino? Would Steven Soderbergh or Paul Thomas Anderson have had their voices heard so early? Probably not. Redford gave indie filmmakers a platform when the mainstream shut them out. He believed in the word independence, not just in politics, but in art. Sundance wasn't about money or box office. It was about voices that deserved to be heard. That's why his influence stretches far beyond his own work. Every independent movie that breaks through today owes a debt to Robert Redford. He didn't just star in films. He gave others the chance to make theirs. Even in his 80s, Redford wasn't ready to stop. In 2017, he reunited with Jane Fonda for Our Souls at Night. And a year later, he starred in The Old Man and the Gun, a film he described as his last acting role. But when asked about retirement, he shrugged it off. Retirement means stopping something. Why not live as much as you can as long as you can? That was his philosophy. Keep moving forward, keep creating, keep living. He wasn't clinging to the past. He was always searching for the next project, the next challenge. And that's why people respected him so deeply. He could have coasted on his looks and fame decades ago, but instead, he used his platform to build, to create, and to inspire. Even in his final years, as Sundance prepared to relocate to Colorado in 2027, Redford was still thinking about growth and evolution. That's who he was until the very end. But Redford's life wasn't just triumph and glory. He knew heartbreak, pain that most people could never imagine. He lost his infant son, Scott, in 1959. Decades later, in 2020, he lost another son, James, to cancer at just 58 years old. Losing one child is unbearable. Losing two? It's the kind of grief that never fully heals. And yet, even through tragedy, Redford never gave up on his belief in storytelling, in art, in using creativity as a way to process pain and connect with others. He poured his energy into his work, into activism, and into building platforms for others. That resilience is what made him more than a star. It made him human, relatable, even in his larger-than-life status. When people look at Redford, they don't just see an actor. They see someone who endured loss, carried it with grace, and still gave the world beauty. The tributes haven't stopped since News broke. Actors like Coleman Domingo thanked him for his everlasting impact. Ron Howard called him a cultural game-changer. Designer Kenneth Cole described him as a visionary friend and idol. Even Rosie O'Donnell, who wasn't his co-star, chose to post a picture of him with Barbra Streisand from The Way We Were, writing, "We will never be the same. Good night, Bob." That's the thing. People don't just remember Robert Redford for his roles. They remember him for his influence, for the way he made others feel, for the doors he opened. Writers like Stephen King reflected on how Redford had been part of a Hollywood revolution in the 70s, reminding us that his impact reached far beyond the screen. This wasn't just a death, it was the end of an era. And yet, through all the tributes, one thing keeps coming up: The Way We Were. That film, that story, that final scene outside the Plaza Hotel, where Streisand brushes Redford's hair from his forehead. It still brings audiences to tears half a century later. Why? Because it captured something universal about love and loss, about wanting something that time won't allow. Streisand once joked that their fictional marriage outlasted real ones, but in a way, she was right. Their characters live forever in that movie, preserved in film reels and streaming platforms, continuing to move people who weren't even alive when it was made. That's the essence of Redford's magic. His career wasn't just about hits or awards. It was about moments that lodged themselves in people's hearts, moments that still feel fresh decades later. Robert Redford's life wasn't uncomplicated. It was filled with triumphs, heartbreaks, risks, and reinventions. But above all, it was lovely. He was the golden boy who refused to be shallow, the indie film champion who gave others a chance, the friend who never forgot Barbra Streisand, and the father who carried grief with dignity. His passing leaves a hole in Hollywood, but his legacy, his films, his festival, his vision will outlast all of us. So maybe the best way to honor him isn't just to mourn, but to do what he always encouraged. Keep creating, keep pushing forward, keep telling stories that matter. Robert Redford is gone, but the world he helped build, that's here to stay.